So let me introduce Cee. Cee Peal is a theatre artist from the Nisga'a First Nation of Northern BC, now working in Vancouver on the traditional unceded territories of the Musqueam, Tsleil-Waututh, and Squamish peoples. He brings to the library his experience in storytelling, theatre, and image making, drawing from his experience working as an actor, director, writer, dancer, and producer on various productions. With a passion for Indigenous studies and cultural evolution, Cee is also the Indigenous Outreach Coordinator at the Cult and the Artistic Associate at the Carmen Arts Group. And Cee will introduce both Damion and Sherine.
Well, thank you very much for all of you coming out here. What a beautiful day. Oh my goodness. It's such the perfect weather to be in a windowless basement, isn't it? So, I'll be working with these two actors right over here, fantastic people. Damion LeClair is a Dutch-European settler who is also Métis, Two-Spirit, and neurodivergent. They are a multidisciplinary artist who currently reside in Vancouver. Damion has had the privilege of working with several professional theatre companies throughout their career, including Theatre Aquarius, Boca del Lupo, Ruby Slippers Theatre, Electric Company Theatre, Green Thumb Theatre, Axis Theatre, Chemainus Theatre Festival, Manitoba Theatre Centre, Native Earth Performing Arts, Summer Works, and Glitch Theatre. Damion currently teaches for Bard on the Beach, Arts Club, Lights Up Theatre, and Maple Ridge Arts Council. Damion is a graduate of Studio 58. And Sherine Menez is a first-generation Filipino-Canadian theatre and film actor. They trained under the intensive acting program at Vancouver Institute of Media Arts in 2021. In spring 2025, they were part of Pelmet and Sables during Rumble Theatre's Tremors Festival, and it's thrilled to be back. And I'm thrilled to be working with the two of them. So, tonight, you are going to get the chance to see a more deeper dive into the rehearsal process of staging your own play. Welcome to part 3 of Stage Your Own Play, Production and Premiere. This is a 3-part series. It might be a longer series. There's a lot of question marks that might be involved in that. Stay tuned. Keep in touch with VPL, vpl.ca/storyteller to find out more information about the events that I'm hosting. There you'll probably see some updates if we've got an exciting announcement about a continuation of the series. That would be really exciting, but there's like 80 million different people that need to give clearance and all of this other thing that would take too much time to dive into. But for now, part 3, welcome. So a brief overview, just to sort of remind everybody who's been here the past couple of times, and in case you're new to this, here's how the series has gone so far across the 3 parts. Part 1, I called I Have an Idea. What things can I consider in the beginning? It was just myself. I was also joined by the managing producer of Touchstone Theatre, Libby, to talk through a number of different things that go into the production of a play from the very outset. So this includes the playwriting part, but also all of the things that go around it. Grant writing, institutional support, dramaturgical support, etc., etc. We took a very brief look at all of those types of things from the very top. Part 2, last week, the workshop. I have a full draft of a play. Well, now what? Part 2, I was joined by these 2 incredible actors, and we did a little bit of an overview of what the workshop may or may not look like, depending on who you end up working with, if you get the chance to workshop a project of yours. And we demonstrated what we typically will refer to as sort of table work, where, funny enough, we're looking at a table. And it was meant to illustrate some of the middle period of the overall long-term development of a play. Workshopping can happen multiple times, and usually does happen multiple times over the lifespan of the development of a new play. So we gave a brief glimpse at that. Part 3, production and premiere. Somehow we made it this far. What might production look like? So, as always, I mentioned this across part 1 and 2. Part 3, very similar. We're going to do our best to illustrate a lot of the key points and deeper themes, but it is a very, very, very big oversimplification of a very complicated and nuanced process. But what might production look like? Production, first of all, specifically when I'm talking about it, I'm referring to the period of time where we are working in rehearsals with the specific goal of staging the play for audiences who are buying tickets. So this is the type of thing that you'll see if you go to like a theater website and they're like, here's our show, buy some tickets. When you go and see that, they're in the production phase, or they were in the production phase leading up to opening night. So Production, usually, it can vary, as always with everything, but usually you might expect 2 to 3 weeks of rehearsal, more widely varying run for the show. So the run, meaning how many times it's being performed over the lifespan of that particular show and production. Sometimes the run is only a few days, sometimes it can be a week, sometimes a couple of months. It really varies depending on the funding, depending on the popularity, depending on the size of the company and scale. Also worth mentioning, touring shows may have a larger lifespan because they are spending a lot of time traveling across the province, across the region, across the country, sometimes international for some of the biggest companies. You might see that if you look at the timeline for like a touring Broadway show from New York, you'll see that they've spent many, many months, if not years, touring a show. Production may also include production meetings with design teams. Many different intersecting work timelines are incorporated. So each of the different domains of production, when I say production, I mean the other elements that go into it outside of the acting and the actors and the work that we do. Set design, costume design, lighting design, all of these other components that really help lift a show up to incredible heights. All of those things are usually happening simultaneously as we are rehearsing the show, so that by the time we get to opening night, everything is in place. One of the other major things that will end up being incorporated is the production manager, related to all of these timelines. Someone navigating the entire enterprise of production to make sure things are running on track. They're the ones who are keeping track of all of the moving parts that are involved in all of this. So while the director is in charge of having the guiding vision and staying in contact with everybody from that perspective, the production manager is the person who's there really making sure that everything is flowing correctly. And if there are any issues that may arise during the process, they'll be one of the people who helps resolve and navigate those types of things. They do an absurd amount of work, production managers. So a few more things to mention. Often the venue isn't available to us until very close to opening night, sometimes only a few days before, sometimes maybe only a day or two before. So oftentimes when we're rehearsing for a show for production, we'll usually be rehearsing in some sort of studio space or some sort of alternate space that's not the venue itself, working on developing the blocking and the maneuvering and the acting and how the show is actually going to look for most of that 2 to 3 week period leading up to opening night. And then depending on funding, depending on the venue, depending on a whole bunch of different things, we might not have access to the actual theater performance space until very close to opening night. Now, it's really worth mentioning, this has a direct impact on production because important choices and finalized concepts can't be fully brought to life outside of the performance venue. Things like lighting, things like sound design, things like set design. Imagining putting all of these components together with the actors and the blocking in the space. A lot of these things are impacted by the reduced amount of time that we have access to it, so we can't really fully see the full vision of what we're all trying to work towards until very close to the end. So one of the things that's resulted out of the nature of these restrictions is something that we refer to as Tech Week. A term describing the week before opening, where a lot of time, energy, and focus is placed on tech and production elements, including rehearsal time. So even while we've got all of the actors into the space, a lot of times, it's been my experience that we shift focus from the actors' work and the acting and getting, the right performance out of the actors. We shift a lot of our focus and energy into incorporating production elements that we might not have had the time or the resources to actually accommodate, trying out costumes, trying out props, trying out set pieces, and all of this other stuff to make sure that the production team is getting a really clear viewpoint of all of these things. Same thing with the director. Now, it's also worth noting, as I already mentioned, as a result, tech and production can often feel the most under pressure to work and create because they might have days where we would have had weeks working with the actors and the blocking and the choreography and all of this other stuff. It's a really unfortunate side effect of the nature of what we do, and especially as it relates to the amount of funding that is available, and more importantly, the amount of funding that isn't there. Like, it would be great, in my opinion, if we could afford to pay designers a lot more, and to afford to give them a lot more time to be able to really dive deep into their work. But this is impacted by a huge amount of things, including, especially here in this city, the rising cost of rent for a lot of these venue spaces. So it's getting more and more expensive to be able to take time in those spaces in the first place. which is going to take a lot more money. I would say that, like most of theater, the work involved is done with less time than ideal and less pay than ideal, unfortunately. Continuing on, I would say that dozens upon dozens of people may be involved in the entire process of production, never mind the workshopping process and the initial stages of the process. Designers for set, costumes, props, lights, sound, and projections is one example. Construction teams and other contractors who are actually building all of these things. Directors, meaning the director themselves, maybe a co-director, maybe an assistant director. The stage management team, a group of people who are helping make sure that all of the other components outside of the acting runs apace while we're actually performing the show. Production management, the people that I said were keeping everything on track. Administrative staff for the company, making sure the contracts and payments and union stuff is all sort of organized and all this other stuff. Marketing, making sure that everybody knows the show is happening. Front of house. Oftentimes front of house ends up being volunteer because it's a great opportunity to contribute, and it takes a lot of work and a lot of people to make sure that front of house is running very well. Venue technicians and support staff. Depending on the exact company and the venue, there may or may not be venue staff who are actually specifically contracted for the venue itself, who are required to be incorporated and also incorporated in the production process, making sure that everything is coming together well. They also carry a huge amount of expertise about how exactly to navigate in the venue when we're loading in thousands of dollars worth of set and costumes and props. They'll be the ones who are like, actually, this is probably the most smartest way and the best way to actually get everything in so that nothing gets damaged and everything happens really smoothly and efficiently. And of course the actors as well. They're also involved in this process. So, let's take a quick look at the rehearsal schedule. I would say that usually in the rehearsal process of production itself, we might expect 2 to 3 passes of the whole script. The first pass, table work. That's kind of what we did last week. We were sitting at a table, we're talking through, looking at the script from top to bottom together as a group, discussing themes, ideas, characters, journey, etc. We also talk about broad strokes, visions, metaphor, the deeper meaning of the script and the characters and the line work. And we might get a bit of glimpse into how we might want to act some of this work out. The second pass, our first time on our feet, setting, blocking, and larger scale moments. Broad reaching is the key, is usually the right way to go about things, not going too fine in detail on our second pass, because the details will eventually come later on in the process. We're setting large-scale ideas. The characters will kind of move here and kind of do this, and then we'll move on to the next scene. And we might talk a little bit about some of the acting to make the moving make sense, but not a whole lot of it. Third pass. The next time we start from the top is like with a fine-tooth comb, looking at details with actors, specificity and consistency with any blocking or choreography. Here we're going to get really specific and precise notes from directing and from the choreography team, if that's applicable or what have you, to look at, okay, can we really be sure that we're being really precise about this moment here and the way that the character is manifesting themselves here and all of this other stuff. I would say that second and third pass may include a run-through at the end of the process before going back to the top to evaluate how the whole show works. So, if we were rehearsing a show, we would do table work. Usually we would start with a read-through with everybody involved and everybody invited to do, kind of like what we did last week, where we had actors at the table, we had the script, somebody read the stage directions, and the actors were reading for their characters. We would usually start the whole process like that together. Then we would comb through the whole thing like I mentioned in our first pass, talking through moment by moment, scene by scene, potentially line by line depending on the work. Then we would get up onto our feet and sort of blocking. After we've gone from top to bottom, picking out what exactly we want to do moment to moment, usually we might try and run through the whole thing from top to bottom without stopping. This is to give all of us a chance to get a sense of how the whole show works together based on how we've said it, and gives us a chance to identify any details that we might want to iron out, any problems or challenges we might have faced that we weren't necessarily expecting, which is where third pass comes in, where we go once again from the top, moment by moment, looking for those things that might not have worked out as well as we wanted to, as well as any things that we sort of put on the back burner in that whole process. So for reference, I'll say that what you're about to see coming up next, we'll be working, the three of us, as though we were doing that second pass. It's as though we've already done the table work, as though we've already talked it through a little bit ourselves, and as though we're just starting at the very top, looking at what blocking might be like with some loose ideas of how we might set the script. And on that note, I'll also share with you a few other broad strokes ideas of what I'm expecting for the rest of the night. So I had this presentation. You might notice that I'm kind of zooming a little bit through it because I really want to get to the fun stuff. I also know that I talked at length in the first and second part, so I'm sure that that's sort of well known at this point. But we'll be diving into our work as actors in this space in front of you. So this specific arrangement, in case you didn't know, where we've got audiences on two sides looking at each other, we'll typically refer to that as alley theater, where we're sort of working in this alley space in between all of you. It can be a decently uncommon arrangement. You don't typically see this in a lot of theaters. Some theaters are purpose-built for this, so if you've ever been to, I'm forgetting the name of the specific venue, but Pacific Theater was the company that used to occupy a theater space in, it's near, it's near Broadway and Granville. Was where the venue used to be, and they used to have purpose-built seats that were arranged like this. You might also see this type of arrangement in a black box theater. Black box meaning that nothing is really set and it is just a black box, and we set out chairs as we need to and as we like to. So we'll be working like that for a little while. Then after that, about I'd say like 45 minutes to an hour, we'll be working in that arrangement, and then we'll be joined by Lois Anderson from Touchstone Theatre to have a follow-up conversation about some more of the things that may go into the development of the theatre process. And then with any luck, we'll have a little bit of time for a very specific Q&A afterwards, in case any of you folks have any questions. And on that note, I'll also remark the same thing that I mentioned last week. One of the things that I'm going to make sure to do, and I'll let you folks know this now, is that we're not really going to take any questions once we start the actual rehearsal process by ourselves. And this is just to make sure that we're maintaining the integrity of the rehearsal process between each of us, so that we can really navigate and dive into the work to the best degree that we can under a very unusual circumstance like this. So if you do have any questions, please write them down for afterwards. And also, before I even get too deep into the weeds, before we even dive deep into it, I'll be happy to take some questions in just a couple moments about some of the things that I talked about before we dive into it. And also for reference, I don't think we have too many more pens left, but I think we've got some writing pads over that way as well. Once I've answered any questions that we have right now, there will be a bit of a transitionary period where we get the projector out of the way and we sort of set ourselves up to dive into the rehearsal. I think that covers almost everything. The last thing, before I take some additional questions, if you have them. If not, that's chill, by the way. That's cool too. A brief content warning. Pelmet and Sables includes moments of physical assault, use of violence, themes of death, existential dread, and depression. I don't anticipate that we'll get too deep into it to cause a visceral reaction, but I just wanted to flag that down in case that's important to you. This is also a relatively relaxed event, so if you need to get up, stretch your legs, go to the washroom, that's more than welcome. I will flag that also for the integrity of this rehearsal, it would be fantastic if you folks did not cross through this center area while we're working. There's plenty of space to be maneuvering around outside of that space, but just so that way we don't have to deal with, oh, suddenly there's this stranger who's sort of right here with all of us. But, you know, as Sherine delightfully mentioned to me, it's like we're not at the opera. It's not like you're not going to be let back in if you're like, oh, I need to go to the bathroom. It's like, no, it's fairly open-ended here. Yeah, I'll keep that there. Are there any questions while we're here?
The tech week, that's done in the performance venue?
Oh, yes. So really quickly, the question here, the tech week, is that done in the performance venue? Yes. Usually, it's called tech week, but often, as I mentioned, it might only be a matter of days. But that usually is when we focus a little bit more on tech. The answer is yes. We've got a question right over here.
What's the difference between producer and producing manager?
I think that that is a very complicated question that I'm not the most well equipped to answer. I would say that a producing manager is a specific role within a given company. Somebody can be a producer and not necessarily working for a company, and they kind of manage a lot of the same tasks. A producing manager might also be involved in multiple productions within a company if they're doing multiple productions, whereas a producer might only be involved in one project and sort of brought in or working on the one thing, as opposed to being responsible for a wide variety of different things across the company season. I think that makes sense. Yeah. Are there any other questions? We have a question over here. We'll just take a moment for the microphone to get there.
Hi, I have a question regarding the classes. Do they happen at the same day, or you schedule different days for each classes?
It usually takes across the entire 2 to 3 week period. So the first pass with the table work, sometimes depending on the length and the complexity of the play, the first pass, table work, might take anywhere from 1 to 2 or 3 days in total length for us to go all the way through. Second pass can usually take up to like a week, if not more time. Third pass can take up to another additional week or less time, depending on how much of a crunch we're under. So the third pass often can sometimes be sort of, like we might sacrifice the framework of going top to bottom strictly, and we might just focus on, okay, here's a moment we have to work on, now we have to move on to the next moment, but we can't go all the way chronologically. Yeah. It can also vary project to project, but usually those passes, I would say, is like the framework for the overall process across a couple-week period, I think.
Thank you.
Yeah, and my experience in being informed by that as well also, often I have the fortune to work in professional settings where we're doing 8-hour days. So it's across a couple of 8-hour days that we would work on that first pass, a week worth of 8-hour days, you know, that type of thing. I see a question over here.
I kind of want to ask, because you mentioned touring, and I was thinking about like how often for this kind of more indie shows that they got a rerun, and when they got a rerun, how many passes will they go through again with this, or they just has already got the rerun, so we'll just kind of stick to the man afterward?
That's a fantastic question. One of the things that we would talk about in a situation like that is the term that I've heard most often is called remounting work. So it's a work that's already been more or less developed, and we're not building a new, completely new project. As you mentioned, it's kind of already there. So we're just sort of remounting all of what we built more or less. That can really vary. Sometimes I've seen some processes take like just a week and then it's back up. Sometimes I've seen it take a couple of weeks because not every actor was available for the whole process, and so we need to work through a little bit more in depth to bring other people up to speed with a lot of what we had set and potentially new discoveries that might need to be made because of the new actor and what they bring to the process. And it can also vary because some shows and productions might actually be set up to tour kind of from the onset. And so you don't necessarily need to keep re-rehearsing it if you're taking a show, you open it, let's say we were doing Pomp and Sables and we were opening it in Vancouver in a couple of weeks, and then we were going to take it to Victoria without a huge break of time in between. We might only need to take a couple of days at that, once we get to the new venue, to set up all of the tech and to make sure that the show that we've set works in the new venue and to make sure that there's no safety concerns or anything that might get in the way of us actually performing the show well at that time. And then same thing if we keep touring it all across the province, the region, or the country. It can sometimes only take us like a day or two in that type of a scenario. Yeah, I think that answers that question. Yeah. Are there any other questions while we're here? I'll take that as a no. So from this point on, we're going to transition, have a little bit of a transitionary period. And from here, make sure you write down those questions. I will not be flagging questions as we work, but we'll be happy to chat near the end of today about all of that. stage direction, and we can go over the little So, before we get started, I'd love to check in with you. How are you doing? Yeah? Let's check in with our heart, mind, and body. So I'll give an example of how you do this in these notes. I would say that my heart is feeling light. I think. I'm really enjoying the weather, and that's doing a lot for me. I would say that my mind is a little bit scattered because I feel like I've got like 80 million different things that I'll be working with. We'll be working off my. Yeah. Thank you, though. Yeah. I would say that my mind is a little bit scattered because I've got like 80 million different things going on. And I would say that my body is really tired because I don't think I've been looking after myself as well as I could. But I'm excited to jazz be here. And you don't have to share anything personal life because we've got like a bunch of people.
Yeah, I would say honestly ditto, the exact same. Light heart, fuzzy mind because I've got so many things going on, and heavy body because I don't know how to take care of myself.
I feel like my heart's feeling very full. My mind's also scattered. And my body's feeling like charged. I don't know.
Awesome. Yeah. Okay, great. So how I think we're going to do this, we'll just stand and read through the script. We'll go until I feel like it's probably like a good time to stop and say, like, that's a moment we'll work on, and then we'll go back to the top of that. And then we'll sculpt some rough blocking, and then we'll sort of keep moving in that fashion. Just to give us a sense of what we're working with, so that way we're not trying to make sense of the text and moving, though that will still be part of what we're doing, but just try and give us a chance to do first. I'll read for stage directions for this read-through, and we'll see how that goes. Scene 1, we hear whispering, sounds of something. Lights rise on Pelmet sitting in an electric chair. Enter Sables carrying a ball gag.
Are you confident this is what you want to do?
No. Well, yes. Yes and no. It's not sudden, so yes. No, because I'm practicing this odd little thing called lack of surety.
How's that working out?
Not sure. What's the ball gag for?
It is so you do not lose your tongue.
How do I do that?
I do not know. Put it on the light here.
Sables takes the ball gag, straps it onto Pelmet, and turns on the chair. Pelmet shakes violently, then is still.
Where do lost tongues go? Is there some tucked away corner of the world where all lost things gather? Like a little symphony where tongues, wallets, keys, and dreams converge? Old friendships, past lives, identities.
Pelmet wakes up suddenly, entirely unharmed. Removes the ball gag.
Well, the time we lose must go there.
What time?
The time we lose when you use
Aphorisms?
large words that nobody understands.
Like...
Aphorisms.
An aphorism is a figure of speech containing some element of truth.
Oh, like digging your own grave.
Sure.
Do you really think aphorisms will help?
What's wrong with having a large diction?
The size of your diction is not insensitive. It's all about how well others use it.
The people just say that, though, to have something to say.
Doesn't that sound familiar?
Sometimes it's important to say things for the sake of saying them.
Is it also important to say things about saying things for the sake of saying them?
Or say we said we were saying sayings about saying things for their own sake.
Say you stopped speaking sayings on said things. We'd save so much time.
Sables takes a seat on the electric chair. Let's stop there. I feel like we're just about to go into it. I feel like we could say there's probably 2 moments in there, but I feel like we're getting to a larger shift into the conversation. Sables will then say how was it afterwards.
Okay, let's imagine that we're in a performance venue that's actually set up like this. I think it would be cool if we could find a way to, like in theory it'd be really cool if we could somehow have a surprise to the reveal of Helmet in the electric chair. One possible version of that is that we've got sort of audience set up like this. And then let's just say, we'll put this back when we get back to it, but let's say that we've got sort of the electric chair just right over this way. It might even be like, I'm imagining that this isn't like a stage and we keep moving further back. I'm imagining it might even be like wall over here. And then maybe we've got like a curtain around it. And you're there from the very top when the audiences are let in. And there's like a curtain, maybe there's a front of house staff who's like right here making sure that nobody like tries to take a peek behind and is like, yes, take a seat. The show will happen in a little bit. So let's say that Damion, you can see right there just to try it. And then what would be in the coolest world, at least to try out right now, it might not work, but it's like we'll have Sable's Sherine open it up right at the very top, perhaps, as one option. Another option might be, if you'll indulge me a little bit, we'll have the front of house staff sort of move over this way because maybe we've got like a wired mic and they start giving the front of house speech. Hello everybody, welcome to Pelman and Sable's, turn off your phones. This is where we are, this is after work, the washrooms are over that way, or what have you. And then applause as all of the lights go down, and in that darkness, this gets opened up, and there's sort of like, almost like an interrogation light bulb that's right above you, Damion. It's sort of like gently swinging as you're sort of there strapped to this electric chair perhaps, as one option. And then in that situation, I could imagine that like, we might even be able to parse it out. Sherine, you'd enter maybe from this side, and sort of, let's try it like that. Sherine, you'll enter from this side, and we'll say that, Damion, you're in darkness, but no longer behind that curtain. Okay. We'll get the line, are you confident this is what you want to do? Let's say have a pause right here. So you'll like move in, park, talk right here. It's dark over that way. Gotcha. And then that swinging interrogation lamp reveals Helmet in the chair. Yeah, let's try it from there. So, Sherine, let's start with you off on that side, and I'll just sort of mark through a pretend front of house speech as though the person's there as one option. So audiences are in, lights start to go down a little bit, and then the person comes up over this way. Hi everybody, welcome to Pelman and Sable's. We're going to be doing the show, it's going to be this long. There's no intermission, bathrooms are over that way. Please do not cross through the center space as the actors are playing the show. Thank you very much, enjoy. And I'll say they kind of move over this way. And then you can cross in.
You confident this is what you want to do?
No. Well, yes. Yes and no. It's not sudden, so yes. No, because I'm practicing this odd little thing called surety. Lack of surety.
How's that working out?
I'm not sure. What's the ball gag for?
It is so you do not lose your time.
How do I do that?
I do not know. Put it on the lanyard.
Yeah, okay. Now I feel like that's cool, but now we get into like a little problem where it's like there's a little bit too, not enough space here. Can we try a version, Damion, where you're actually seated right here?
Yeah.
And so in theory, this time the chair would be empty, or maybe there is a curtain, that would be cool too.
Yeah, center.
Yeah. But it's sort of like, we get this reveal and you're right there. Sherine, let's say that we've got this space behind the audience, and on that side too, so that there's space for you to maneuver around this way. It'd be cool if you asked your question from back here.
Here?
Yeah, like right around this, or maybe that side, or like behind the audience, and then you work your way around as you're having this conversation.
Okay.
And in this version, I'll sort of talk through some of the production elements. So let's see a version where front of house speech happens, they leave, lights go down, spotlight on Pelmet, and then I described a little bit some of this whispering sound. So it's sort of this ambient atmospheric suggestion of some sort of ethereal other energy. And while that's happening, Hamlet can sort of be looking around trying to figure out where Sables went to. Let's see how that works. Yeah.
Am I situated here already, or do I enter?
Let's say you enter into it.
Okay.
And we could even say that because there's only the one light, I don't know that this is for sure for certain thing, but it might be dark enough that people don't necessarily notice you until that. So you could even sort of like, I mean, it might not be possible on the school, but sort of like have your footfalls to sort of get people like, what is that? Okay. So we'll say the front of house person comes out this way. Thank you for coming out. Welcome to Pelmet Sables. Blah 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 blah. Enjoy the show. And then the lights go down. We'll hear the sounds first. Then the light goes up.
Are you confident this is what you want to do?
No. Well, yes. Yes and no. It's not sudden, so yes. No, because I'm practicing this odd little thing called lack of surety.
How's that working out?
I'm not sure. What's the ball gag for?
It is so you do not lose your tongue.
How do I do that?
I do not know. Put it on the lanyard.
And we'll just sort of mime through this. I think this works. Let's roll with this for now. And also, if the two of you have any ideas too, feel free to think about this. So we'll get here, put on the ball gag. This actually probably works better because in this scenario we could mount the knife switch up over here for the electric chair, and then turn it on from over here while you watch as how much you violently the electricity. Let's go from, I'm not sure what's the ball gag for.
I'm not sure. What's the ball gag for?
It is so you do not lose your tongue.
How do I do that?
I do not know. Put it on the lanyard.
Switch goes on.
Where do lost tongues go? Is there some tucked away corner of the world where all lost things gather? Like a little symphony where tongues, wallets, keys, and dreams converge. Old friendships, past lives, identities.
All the time we lose must go there.
What time?
Oh, the time you lose when you use.
Aphorisms?
Large words that nobody understands.
Like...
Aphorisms.
An aphorism is a figure of speech containing some element of truth.
Oh, like digging your own grave.
Sure.
Do you really think aphorisms will help?
What's wrong with having a large diction?
Well, the size of your diction is not insensitive. It's all about how well others use it.
But the people just say that, though, to have something to say.
Doesn't that sound familiar?
Can we hold here?
Yeah.
I had maybe an idea. So I'm imagining if you're in an electric chair, you're probably strapped down. But this sort of motion of trying to see Sables, could we lean even further into that? So you're strapped down, but the chair isn't. So you can sort of like scoot the chair around. And then, Sherine, you might be able to just keep walking around to really make Damion keep scooting the chair around as you're sort of pondering the universe or what have you.
Yeah.
That makes sense?
Yeah.
Just to see. So let's go from the very ending of that small chunk of text for Sables, like a little symphony. So that part, before Pelmet wakes up, you can stay parked right by that night switch. And then as soon as Damion wakes up, then you can sort of start, or actually hold for just a little bit. So that way we get the first initial gag of Damion scooting around to try and see You, Sherine?
Didn't agree.
And then move
Okay.
out of the way. So then we have to get, yeah, let's see how that works.
Okay.
From like a little symphony.
Yeah, like a little symphony where tongues, wallets, and keys and dreams converge. Old friendships, past lives, identities.
All the time we lose must go there.
What time?
All the time we lose when you use
Aphorisms?
large words that nobody understands.
Like,
Aphorisms.
an aphorism is a figure of speech containing some element of truth.
Oh, like digging your own grave.
Sure.
Do you really think aphorisms will help?
What's wrong with having a large diction?
Can we hold right here? Can we set like a little rule that for some reason Helen really always wants to be directly facing tables? So like it's cool that you're sort of just tracking with your head, but can you be really committed to this movement? So it doesn't always have to be quite so big. So as Sherine starts to sort of wander, even if it's slow wandering, you can still sort of like, yeah. Do we get the smaller version? Let's say the bigger version that you did this time around. We'll keep that for the first time.
Okay, great.
And then we'll change up the gag with these smaller versions. So after you do this big movement over this way, Sherine, maybe you start taking a slower walk this way.
Okay.
And I like the idea of heading this way. Let's see where that goes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, go for it. Let's go from the same spot again, from like a little symphony.
Like a little symphony where tongues, wallets, keys, and dreams converge. Old friendships, past lives, identities.
All the time we lose must go there.
What time?
All the time we lose when you use
Aphorisms.
large words that nobody understands.
Like,
Aphorisms.
an aphorism is a figure of speech containing some element of truth to it.
Oh, like digging your own grave.
Sure.
Do you really think aphorisms will help?
What's wrong with having a large diction?
Well, the size of your diction is not insensitive. It's all about how well others use it.
Do people just say that, though, to have something to say?
Doesn't that sound familiar?
Sometimes it's important to say things for the sake of saying them.
Is it also important to say things about saying things for the sake of saying?
Or say we said we were saying for the sake of, for their own sakes.
Say you stop speaking, saying things on said things. We save so much time.
Okay, we'll hold here. At this point, Sables is supposed to take a seat. So now we have to figure out how do we get Colin out of the chair and when. I'm thinking one option. Once we get to the size of your diction is no insensitive, it's how well others use it. After, the people just say that though to have something to say. At that point, I think, Sherine, you can move in to start undoing the restraints. Doesn't that sound familiar? Sometimes it's important to say things with the same. And then, Damion, I'll leave it up to you to how you might want to move out of the chair. But in theory, up until City stops speaking sayings, at some point it'd be great if you could get up out of the chair and take some space somewhere.
Okay.
And Sherine, let's see what happens if after you undo the restraints for Damion, you just sort of stay parked by the chair.
Okay.
And then right after stop speaking sayings, we'd save so much time. And then you're already right here to take a seat into the chair.
Okay.
Perhaps.
When do you want me to do it? Do you want to do it?
Right at
That's how you do it.
yeah, others use it. People just say that when they have something to say. So right once we get into this game about saying, right in that area, that's where you start undoing. Yeah.
Okay.
Let's take it back a little further. Large words that nobody understands. So I believe at this point, Sherine, you're already over on this side.
Yeah.
I'm just about to do your pacing across this.
Yeah.
And we'll see if we can work into this untying business.
Okay.
Large words that nobody understands.
Like,
Aphorisms.
an aphorism is a figure of speech containing some element of truth to it.
Oh, like digging your own grave.
Sure.
Do you really think aphorisms will help?
What's wrong with having a large diction?
Well, the size of your diction is not insensitive. It's all about how well others use it.
Yeah, the people just say that to have something to say.
Well, doesn't that sound familiar?
Sometimes it's important to say things for the sake of saying them.
Is it also important to say things about saying things for the sake of saying them?
But say we said we were saying sayings about saying things for their own sake.
Say you stop speaking sayings on said things. We'd save so much time.
How was it?
It shocked me how cruel it felt.
Cruel.
It was a little cruel knowing so far in advance that I was going to die. It was like this impeding feeling of, angst.
Impending.
What?
The word you mean to use is impending.
Oh, no, I mean impeding. Impending is...
Like an interruption.
Would you like an impending interruption?
You are trying to be clever.
Helmet turns on the electric chair. So at some point in this, yeah, we'll make our way over to that part. At this point, I'm kind of feeling like it would be nice if we could find a way to sort of break out of the shape that we're currently in.
Yes.
Somebody on the chair, somebody over here.
Yes.
But I also don't. Well, let's just see.
Yeah, I feel like it could happen, like we can follow the same structure until the switch.
That's probably because we're still in the same electrocuting each other.
Yeah.
Maybe it's probably, let's just keep the shape then.
Okay.
And then we'll see if we can find something else for the moment afterwards. Yeah. I think it worked when you saved right until the very end of that same section to really get up and take space. Let's keep that for now. And for the both of you, there's this moment. Sables takes a seat. I like that there was a bit of a pause there. I'm curious to see how far we can take that pause.
Sorry, where? What the...
This is page 3. Say you stop speaking saying. So you just got up. Sables takes a seat in the electric chair. Sables then says, "How was it?" I think that a part of what I'm curious about and why I'm curious about that pause, I kind of mentioned it last week, but there's almost a game that these two are playing with each other when they're arguing. And sometimes, maybe, I don't know if this will work this time around, but it's almost as though there are moments where they're almost a little bit satisfied that this round of the game has sort of been done. Because the sort of punchline of this version of the game is this saying part. And I think, who says it? I think Helmet sort of wins, so to speak, the argument in a way. The most clever, I guess, might be one way to talk about the game. The most interesting way to say an idea based on the theme. It can be any number of things, but I feel like that, having a pause there is to sort of signify, okay, yeah, we said everything that we could about this, I guess. And there can just be sort of like a wandering of the mind, perhaps. And then we break out of that with getting back to something more important. How was it?
Okay.
It's like, okay, we've had all this fun, yeah, okay, but actually, now, what was it like? Can we go from, let's build back into this, we'll try that pause and we'll keep moving.
Yeah.
What's wrong with having a large diction? Can we go from there?
What's wrong with having a large diction?
The size of your diction is not insensitive. It's all about how well others use it.
People just say that though, to have something to say.
Doesn't it sound familiar?
Sometimes it's important to say things for the sake of saying them.
Is it also important to say things about saying things for the sake of saying them?
Or say, we said we were saying sayings about saying things for their own sake.
Say you stop speaking sayings on said things, we'd save so much time. was like this impeding feeling of angst.
Impending.
What?
The word you need to use is impending.
No, I mean impeding. Impending is...
Like an interruption.
Would you like an impending interruption?
You are trying to be clever.
Yeah, okay, let's hold here. I don't know that there's any way to actually make something out of this, but Damion, can you try to make a meal out of shocked? Shocked me, how cruel it felt?
Yes.
Because then the non-joke is that Sherine Stables doesn't follow through on the pun that's laid out there. He goes for cruel instead. Because there's a line, how was it? It shocked me, how cruel it felt. Almost like you're really proud of that joke, perhaps. That's one option. But then Stables goes for the wrong word. Cruel? Or however you end up reading that. Yeah.
Can I say I like that at least here?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think I was about to say
Happy
yeah,
accident.
yeah, that works. Let's keep that happy accident because I think that just takes care of the problem that we're having.
Yeah.
Let's. Also, sorry, this is double-sided. For reference, usually when we print off scripts for use, they're usually single-sided so that we don't have to keep doing this like, where are we? Because like, I think muscle memory, I know for certain for myself, it's usually, muscle memory for me is to be like, okay, I'm done reading this page of the script, and then I go to the next one, but the next one is like a couple pages ahead or whatever, so. Whatever that's worth. But anyways, let's go from right, Damion, as you get up from the chair facing that way. So right at that very line, we'll say we did already all the way up that part, we'll keep moving. Say when it says same, the end of that section.
Simply stop speaking sayings on said things. Let's save so much time.
How was it?
It shocked me. How cruel it felt.
Cruel?
It was a little cruel knowing so far in advance that I was going to die. It was like this impeding feeling of angst.
Impending.
What?
The word you need to use is impending.
No, I mean impeding. Impending is...
Like an interruption.
Would you like an impending interruption?
If you are trying to be clever,
How intriguing.
that is not a word.
Well, the people of English land use that expression all the time. Maybe that's the secret to it. Maybe you gotta distract the humans right before they bite the bullet. Maybe that's the thing that people call a purpose. A big old built-in distraction mechanism. Yeah. Don't look now. Your destiny is unzipped.
Humans like to keep their destinies private and covered up. They call it covering your privates.
How do you feel about your privates?
Helmet! You're not supposed to go asking about another's privates point blank.
What? It's how they court one another, those humans. More roundabout than that, but still, more or less.
Can we hold right here? I like this idea. Now I'm wondering, Sherine, can you follow Damion as though once we get into this covering your destiny, covering your privates, how do you feel about your privates? With this comment, you could almost stage whisper, as though, no, don't talk about this out loud as you sort of chase after each other, and have like a whispered argument out loud to everybody here, just to see. Okay. I'm curious, as one option to sort of break us out of this one person in the center, one person moving around shape.
Okay.
So let's go from the end of this mini speech. Don't look now, your destiny's unzipped.
Maybe that's the thing that people call purpose. A big old built-in distraction mechanism. Yeah. Don't look now. Your destiny is unzipped.
Humans like to keep their destinies private and covered up. They call it covering up your privates.
How do you feel about privates.
Damion, you're not supposed to go asking about another private's point blank.
Can we hold right here? Let's try this one more time. Sherine, can you hold off on moving until and Damion, you could almost be a little bit obnoxious about this.
Okay.
I think you could start taking your space up over in that direction while Sables is talking.
Okay.
Almost like you keep it private. Following along with the idea in your mind, but moving around. And then when it gets to your line, how do you feel? You could say it really out loud, like you don't care at all that this might be a not appropriate question to be asking somebody. And really quickly, I think that I don't know how we might make sense of this fully, but in the writing of it, my hope is to try and capture a weird, unintentional double entendre, because they're asking each other about their privates. But the setup was that they're actually talking about each other's destinies, was the initial idea. We don't like to see each other's destinies. We like to keep that covered up. And then I'd be curious how much of this section is a misunderstanding of the language that they're using. Because they use the phrase covering your privates. That's what that is, right? It's where you've got a private destiny. And then that might set the stage for why exactly Sherine gets up with a lot of energy. And then right at that point, Sherine, tell them you're not supposed to go asking. On that line, that's probably when you get up and start to make a beeline for Damion. And then let's see if you can just sort of wander around behind the audience as you're whispering very loudly this little bit and see how that gets us. Yeah. Let's go from same spot, from the ending of that little speech.
Maybe that's the thing that people call purpose. A big old built-in distraction mechanism. Yeah. Yeah. Don't look now. Your destiny is unzipped.
Comments like to keep their destinies private and covered up. They call it covering your privates.
How do you feel about your privates?
Helmet! You're not supposed to go asking about another's privates point blank.
What? It's how they court one another, those summons. More roundabout than that, but it's still more or less the same.
I feel as though those people's destinies in private are a fatal point of attraction.
How so?
It's dangerous to be attracted to the privatized destiny of someone when you do not even know what it is going to be.
Well, if you don't know what someone's covered privates are, or will be, what's there to be attracted dangerously to?
It's simple, really. We call it romance.
Romance is fatal.
To die for.
Yeah, okay. Can you add a little bit of extra embellishment when we first say it's simple? Really, they call it romance. Can you really land that romance word? Somehow, just give it a little extra something, like almost a little bit too much.
Okay.
Something. I'm not sure what exactly. We can try a few options.
Yeah.
And I think I feel as though people's destinies in private. At that point, we could probably go back to regular talking.
Okay.
Out loud instead of whispering.
Okay.
Because we're getting away from the territory of double entendre for a little bit. And then I'd be curious, are we able to sort of dive in and out of it? Because we sort of start making the same joke again later on. If you don't know what someone's covered privates are, when we get to that point, we can sort of curious if we can find moments to whisper as we move around.
Yeah.
You could also probably take the wander a little bit more slowly.
Okay.
Because it would be really great if you landed right here for simple, they call it romance. Romance is fatal, to die for. And then let's just see what happens if you keep wandering around the perimeter.
Okay.
Let's just see. Yeah, that was a great. Line was that way. Let's keep that. Let's go back to the same spot and we'll see if we can work all this together and keep it moving.
Okay. Yeah.
Maybe that's the thing that people call purpose. A big old built-in distraction mechanism. Yeah. Yeah. Don't look now. your destiny is unzipped.
Humans like to keep their destinies private and covered up. They call it covering your privates.
How do you feel about your private?
Spill it! You're not supposed to go asking about another's. Oh my god. You're not supposed to go asking about another's privates point blank.
What? It's how they court one another. Those humans. More roundabout than that. Still more or less the same.
I feel as though people's destinies in private are a fatal point of attraction.
How so?
It is dangerous to be attracted to the privatized destiny of someone when you do not even know what it is going to be.
Well, if you don't know what someone's covered privates are, or will be, what's there to be attracted dangerously to?
It's simple, really. They call it romance.
Romance is fatal.
To die for. It is the unknown that is fatal when attracted to.
Your aphorism is showing again.
Humans die when their inner drive stops, and to avoid that form of death, humans seek drive externally in others.
But they don't really know each other, those humans.
That is what is so dangerously fatal, because one person cannot ever know the true course of another's destiny. Therefore, the brain of the humans takes over, and the imaginations projects images of what it wants.
Aren't we just doing the same? Yearning to meet death?
But then would it not be unwise for anybody to be attracted to anybody?
Oh, you empty teabag. I think the attraction to the unknown is bad only when you don't know that you don't know.
No is a no.
I mean, suppose I became aware of my wrongs and I learned that
Let's stop right here, because we're about to get into a big speech in another section. I think that was fantastic. Let's keep that with the Miriam on this side. Let's go from the top and see how this shapes up all together. The rough blocking. And let's see what we can remember. We worked through a lot of it. But let's just see if we can make it back to this point and see how the flow of it all works together. This chair right around here-ish, if I remember correctly. Okay. We'll have the front of house person say, welcome to Common Disables. This is how long the show is. Bathrooms over that way. Please don't cross across the stage. Turn off your phones. Enjoy the show. No intermission or whatever. And then they'll leave. Lights will go down. Then we start to hear the sounds of whispering. Then the light on Damion comes up.
Are you confident this is what you want to do?
No. Well, yes. Yes and no. It's not sudden, so yes. No, because I'm practicing this odd little thing called lack of surety.
How's that working out?
I'm not sure. What's ball gag for?
It is so you do not lose your tongue.
How do I do that?
I do not know. Put it on a link. Where do lost tongues go? Is there some tucked away corner of the world where all lost things gather? Like a little symphony where tongues, wallets, keys, and dreams converge? Old friendships, past lives, identities.
All the time we lose must go there.
Oh, what time?
Oh, the time we lose when you use.
Aphorisms?
Large words that nobody understands.
Like...
Aphorisms!
An aphorism is a figure of speech containing some element of truth.
Oh, like digging your own grave.
Sure.
Do you really think aphorisms will help?
What's wrong with having a large diction?
Oh, the size of your diction is not insensitive. It's all about how well others use it.
People just say that, though, to have something to say.
Doesn't that sound familiar?
Sometimes it's important to say things for the sake of saying them.
so important to say things about saying things for the sake of saying them?
Or say we were saying sayings about sayings for their own sake.
Say you stopped speaking sayings on said things. We'd say so much time.
How was it?
It shocked me. How cruel it felt.
Cruel?
You know, it was a little cruel knowing so far in advance that I was gonna die. It was like this impeding feeling of, angst?
Impending.
What?
The word you need to use is impending.
No, I mean impeding. Impending is...
Like an interruption.
Would you like an impending interruption?
If you are trying to be clever,
How intriguing.
that is not a word.
Well, people of English land use that expression all the time. Yeah, maybe that's the secret to it. Maybe you gotta distract the Hummins right before they bite the bullet. Maybe that's the thing the people call purpose, a big old built-in distraction mechanism. Yeah. Don't look now, your destiny is unzipped.
Hummins like to keep their destinies private and covered up. They call it covering your privates.
How do you feel about your private?
So that you're not supposed to go asking about another's privates point blank.
What? It's how they court one another, those Hummins. More roundabout than that, but still more or less the same.
I feel as though people's destinies in private are a fatal point of attraction.
How so?
It is dangerous to be attracted to the privatized destiny of someone when you do not even know what it is going to be.
If you don't know what someone's covered privates are, or will be, what's there to be attracted dangerously to?
It's simple, really. They call it romance.
Romance is fatal?
To die for. It is the unknown that is fatal when attracted to.
Your aphorism is showing again.
Hummins die when their inner drive stops. And to avoid that home of death, Hummins seek drive externally in others.
Well, they don't really know each other, those Hummins.
That is what is so dangerously fatal, because one person cannot ever know the true course of another's destiny. Therefore, the brain of the Hummins takes over and the image nations projects images of what it wants.
Are we just doing the same? Yearning to meet death?
Then would it not be unwise for anybody to be attracted to anybody?
Oh, you empty teabag! I think the attraction to the unknown is bad only when you don't know that you don't know.
No is a no-no.
Suppose I became aware of my wrongs and
Let's
more
work here. Now, one little note about that no-no is a no-no. One of the previous versions of this, not the one that we worked on, but a version when I was at the studio that we did, somebody had projected, you know that sort of like that star image that's like, the more you know?
Yes.
They had recreated that, but instead had said no is a no-no. Could you almost say that a bit like it's an infomercial for just a moment, just to see what happens there? Okay.
No is a no-no.
Yeah. Almost like this is exactly what you were, like, it's like you were trying to get there this entire time. Like this whole micro journey of being attracted to what you don't know, it's dangerous, is all driving to this point. As though you were leading everybody here the whole time, and here's the thing.
Okay.
Perhaps. I don't know if that'll actually work, but maybe that might help. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah. I feel like the shape is working though.
Yeah.
Yeah. Suppose I became aware of my wrongs. we've got this big speech coming up. And then where we're building to, after the speech, Helmut picks up the ball gag, Sables gets strangled. Well, for one thing, I don't think we can do the most amount of things today because we're reading off the book and we're also not working on it further. But where I would be curious to go is how could we sculpt up this speech to have, like, I don't know that there is a good answer to this because I feel like we might be coming up on the limits of the basic shapes that we can make in the space, and we might not be able to figure things out until we get to detail work, and even then we might not be able to be like, oh, find every single new thing that's available to us. Which is fine. I think that's cool. That's good to know. But where I would be curious to go next is how can we, because I feel like there's two things that I'm getting a feel that we've been in for a little while, and I'm also very aware that these are also things that are just a result of us working the way that we are with scripts, very first time working through it together, that we're both in a territory of sort of like pontificating in the space that we have, and also with a sort of a bit of a meandering energy. I think that what I would flag to think about in theory would be that's one thing that we might also consider breaking out of. We've done it a couple of times. There's this movement from Sherine of like zooming over. And then there's sort of that we've got that limitation that I just talked about the space only providing us with so much. I would probably say we would almost certainly have a second chair somewhere that we can start to use right around here. I'd be curious if there's a version where we sort of get this speech, sort of like, okay, let's sit down and get to brass tacks or something, where it's sort of like, okay, I've got something really important to say, and maybe the two of you are seated right here. That might be a different option, perhaps. Let's just say there's a second chair. Okay. I don't know if that's exactly the right choice, but I'll grab one of these. We'll keep working for just a little bit longer. Okay, good. That one's right there. Let's say this one's kind of just off this way. Actually, let's just say that we don't know the answer because we'll probably have to ask the set designer and the venue tech and a bunch of other people where exactly we can put a chair to freely grab. Let's just say that we'll I'll flag that as a director for our next production meeting, but let's just have it right there right now and I'll ask them if in the theoretical world that we're living in. Let's keep looking a little bit further along. And let's see if we can make sense of this speech. Let's build right, let's go just a little bit before we get into the speech. But then would it not be unwise? Whenever you're ready.
But then would it not be unwise for anybody to be attracted to anybody?
Oh, you empty tea bag. I think the attraction in the unknown is only bad when you don't know that you don't know.
No is a no-no.
Suppose I became aware of my wrongs and I learned that I had been acting in ignorance. Then I could make my decisions educated. If I'm attracted, let's say, to death and who I think death is, simply knowing that I don't know is enough to redirect my attention towards a place of truly knowing. I could have been wrong to jump the gun and say I was attracted to the death I thought I knew, but knowing that I knew not, attraction can always begin anew, afresh, and a bit more genuinely than the last time.
But here I thought I was the one with complicated thoughts.
Attraction is a very complicated thing, friend.
So here, I'm going to pick up the ball gag. What I'm mad, now actually that's a good problem for us to sort out. What happens to the ball gag earlier? So we've got this moment earlier where you're taken out of the restraints. So in the version that I did with Sherine, the ball gag that we had as a prop was able to be sort of like looped around the neck. And so as the other actor had it and then took it out for, I forget what the line was, but it's right at that moment after they wake up. It just sort of rested around their neck, if I'm remembering correctly. I can't remember, but at some point, no.
We used a cable.
We used a cable, that's right. Yeah. Do you have any thoughts on this, Damion? It's chill if not. Or you as well, Sherine.
Well, what I also find interesting too is the lead up to the strangle and what necessarily kind of flicks that switch off for him, and like why it goes from like this conversational thing that we're having where we seem to be friendly with one another, and then all of a sudden it's like it turns back.
Yeah.
Is it because something was said that Thomas doesn't agree with? Or is it just like it's been building up since the beginning of the play as well, and then it just like switches? That's just something I wanted to flag as an actor. It's interesting the switch up that happens.
It's a very good thing to flag because I think it brings up really deep questions about the nature of these two and how they feel about this particular activity, trying to kill each other. I think that there could be many answers, and I'd be curious to try out a couple of options. Because I feel like as beings, they are relatively accustomed to the act of killing each other, even though it still does get a little bit violent, like with the shaking the electric chair. And it's not as though it's like all sunshine and roses necessarily. But I also don't know that I don't know. Does it have the same weight as if these were actually people?
I don't think so, because I think that's kind of what's funny about them and their whole commentary on human beings is like they're these strange creatures that they don't fully understand. They think that like their everyday lives are so weird, which is funny because like they're the aliens.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Do you have any thoughts on this, Sherine? Because I suppose this also may feature into looping back to the top of the show as the person who does the first attempt with the electric chair. And then this might also feed back into the next time with the electric chair turning it on as well.
Right.
But I do think it is specifically good to flag it here as well, because you go from this, as you mentioned, this sort of pontificating universe to then being like, I'm going to strangle.
You know what I just thought of this. Their relationship kind of reminds me of Roadrunner and Wile E. Coyote.
Yeah.
Where they're always trying to like one up each other or like, yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a great image. And that makes a lot of sense because there's almost something that's like, I would say also, what are the names? The sheepdog and the, but they clock into work, these two characters, the sheepdog and the, I think it's also a coyote. But they clock into work and then they're like super violent and angry towards each other. And then as soon as the workday's done, they clock out. And then they sort of stroll home together being like, oh, well, that was kind of cool. See you later, that type of thing. Might also be an interesting reference that could be explored in theory. Yeah. For this moment, though, to get back to, so the line, attraction is a complicated thing. Hold on, I never said you were to kill I feel like one of the things that I was thinking as a playwright, outside of the actual world of the characters, just for reference, is I was sort of feeling as I was writing this, they haven't killed each other in a little while. So there's a very practical component of like, they've been talking a lot. And I'm wondering, is there space within these characters to have an awareness of that as well?
It's been
Yeah, like, okay, this is fun, but we should probably get back to it. Almost a little bit businesslike, perhaps? I don't know if that's the right answer, but let's see what happens if there's a real business aspect to and maybe even helmet that can be sort of at the end of your speech. It's sort of like you're pontificating and pondering the existence of the universe, however you read that portion. But as you get to the end, you can sort of let those layers strip away and just be really factual about this ending point. But knowing that I do not. I'm wondering if we can sort of strip away all pretense and just sort of get to the facts of all of this. To help indicate some of the business of these two characters, perhaps. I don't know if that's the right answer, but yeah. How did it feel grabbing the chair at that point?
I don't know.
Yeah.
There's a part of me that really enjoyed just holding the chair
Yeah.
to the point that I don't want to put it down and sit down.
Yeah.
Almost like you're gonna use the chair to hit me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I don't know what that was, but
I think that's fun.
yeah. I think also the character in me is this is their monologue.
Yeah.
Maybe not
Upstage too much. Yeah.
that,
Let's keep seeing how that works.
Yeah.
I think you can probably, let's try it. Damion, you go for the chair, a big beeline. There's a teabag, I think the attraction then on its own bad. I like that was here, and we sort of resolved all of this, moving all over the place. Movement. No is no. Suppose you could make a real beeline because you're actually I've got an idea, perhaps. And the idea needs you to be sitting down because of some reason. It might be really important or what have you. And then that gives you a little bit more time to get the idea of the chair. But the idea of, I'm going to grab a chair. And that's
you
like
want
the
to see it in
extent.
this space?
That chair? Are you
Does it live in the space
of the world that they're in?
Yeah.
I'll say yes.
or does it just show up?
That could be cool. Let's try that. Let's just see what happens.
Yeah, because we did say we were kind of in this liminal space.
Yeah. Let's try it.
Okay.
Let's see what happens if it's suddenly there.
Where do you want to go from?
Can we go from... But then would it not be unwise?
Okay. But then would it not be unwise for anybody to be attracted to anybody?
Oh, you empty teabag. I think the attraction of the unknown is only bad when you don't know that you don't know.
No is a no.
Suppose I became aware of my wrongs, and I learned that I had been acting in ignorance, then I could make my decisions educated. If I'm attracted, let's say, to death, and who I think death is, simply knowing that I don't know is enough to redirect my attention towards a place of truly knowing. I could have been wrong to jump the gun and say I was attracted to the death I thought I knew, but knowing that I knew not, attraction can always begin anew, afresh, and a bit more genuinely than the last time.
You thought I was the one with complicated thoughts.
Attraction is a very complicated thing, friend.
Wait. Hold on. We never said that you were the killer and I was the robber.
How did you find your turn dying?
Hardly a catastrophe.
You committed blasphemy?
Catastrophe.
You convicted the last of me.
You catastrophe.
You castrated me.
It means a happy ending.
Castration is hardly a happy ending.
Castration itself, or the one being castrated.
Castration itself.
here we have another pause, and I think that's the right impulse. It's another moment of sort of like, that kind of concludes that moment for these two characters in their world. Like, well, I guess that's that, perhaps. I kind of want to try, so we did a version of it where you ended up on the ground, is that right, here? And
Yes.
then, I believe Elle was standing on the chair. Let's just see what happens if we tried that. So here's how we can kind of map it out. Kind of like that you place the chair, but I'm almost wondering if it's almost funnier if you have the chair for a while. So maybe you find the impulse to grab the chair for a while, and then you sort of like wander up as though you're going to put it down, but then you just don't. And then when Damion's speech is done, wow, I thought that was like really, but then you don't sit into the chair. And then Damion, you can move around, strangle, and I would flag
While
that.
I'm standing up?
Yeah, while you're standing, so that we get this motion of strangle from up slowly to the ground,
Okay.
perhaps. And so you'll be moving sort of backwards this way. We'll mark it and mime it very, very not at all, basically. But we'll get to this point, and then let's see what happens if you stand on the chair that Sherine placed, looking way down.
Okay.
You want to go from the same place?
Let's go from the end of the speech. So we'll say that, where are we? I could have been wrong to jump the gun. This is right before the page turn. Sherine, let's say in theory, we're about to round off this rehearsal, but let's just say in theory that we would have built in that you would have grabbed the chair sooner,
Yeah.
and that you're already in place with the chair, and that's where we'll start in terms of blocking. So it's right at the bottom of page 5, going into page 6.
Okay.
And we'll say that in theory, we would have worked you already having it right here for this line. And then you'll put down the chair at, let's say, put down chair, then say line. Can we try that?
Okay.
Just to see? Yeah. Whenever you're ready.
I could have been wrong to jump the gun and say I was attracted to the death I thought I knew. But knowing that I knew not, attraction can always begin anew, afresh, and a bit more genuinely than last time.
Here I thought I was the one with complicated thoughts.
Oh, attraction is a very complicated thing, friend.
Wait, hold on. We never said that you were the killer and I was the robber.
How did you find your turn dying?
Hardly catastrophe.
You committed blasphemy?
You catastrophe.
You convicted the last of me.
You catastrophe.
It means you castrated me.
Means a happy ending.
Well, castration is hardly a happy ending.
Castration itself or the one being castrated?
Oh, castration itself.
Yeah, now in this moment, we'll say sometime during this pause, it's great that you're standing up there, but at some point, can you find a reason to step down and sit down? And then Sherine, can you find a reason to then go to this chair, turn it around so that you're facing each other?
Yeah.
And take a seat, and then let's just work this moment to finish off for the day. We'll go from the last you catastrophe, you castrated me, it means a happy ending.
Okay.
And we'll see if we can get this pause. Whenever you're ready.
You catastrophe.
You castrated me?
It means a happy ending.
Well, castration is hardly a happy ending.
Castration itself or the one being castrated?
Castration itself. So that wasn't it.
What was? Or was not?
Well, what we just did.
Well, hold right here. We'll try one more time. can we make a real deal out of this pause?
Yes.
I do like the impulse to not have too much there, but a part of the intention and hope with all of these pauses here and there is to sort of give a break from all of this existential, cerebral, let's talk about the meaning of life.
Okay.
The jokes help with that, but I feel like it'd be nice if we could just have, it's like a bit of punctuation.
Yeah.
Sort of like, well, maybe even these, I wonder if these characters could enjoy the silence a little bit as well.
Okay. Yeah.
Almost like it's like, I don't know, something to enjoy. Go for the same spot, and you could probably even stay standing on that chair for just a moment longer before you step down. I like the turnaround though.
Okay.
Turning around and then getting the castration itself, and you can stay up there for a little while, and we'll see if we can just really enjoy this pause. One more time, whenever you're ready.
You catastrophe!
You castrated me!
It means a happy ending.
Well, castration is hardly a happy ending.
Castration itself or the one being castrated?
Castration itself. That wasn't it.
What was?
Well, what we just did.
What was or was not?
Well, what we just did.
That's quite a lot.
Now, if you look closely enough, anything can become too complicated for its own good.
Okay, I will bite on this morsel.
Give me a second.
Here you go.
No, I meant the topic.
Oh, I don't have any of those on me.
Good topics are often lying around everywhere.
A good topic is hard to find.
So is death.
Exactly.
Is that a good topic, though? I'm not sure.
Good,
Well-
we'll hold here. Yeah, okay. I think it's really beginning to take shape. In theory, we'd probably break, and then I'm gonna go to coffee working. But that's kind of the end of our theoretical universe. We got a round of applause for the actors. Okay. Yeah, at this time I'll get Candy back up here to briefly introduce our next guest. Yeah.
We are pleased to have Lois Anderson here tonight. Lois is the Artistic Director of Touchstone Theatre and an adjunct professor at UBC in the Department of Theatre and Film. She won the Jessie Award for Best Direction, Hercules, Bard on the Beach, and the 2019 Critics' Choice Award for Innovation, the Sistrata. She has worked extensively in Canada and Australia and has been an artistic associate with the National Arts Centre, most recently directing Used to Call Me Marie by Ty Amy Braun. Please welcome Lois.
Hi there.
Hi.
It's good to see you.
Yeah, that was great.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that was a lot of fun. Something that I've been really looking forward to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because I've read the script because you sent it to Touchstone. You submitted it to Touchstone. We had a call for scripts at Touchstone, which is a Canadian and Indigenous presenting theatre company. And yours was one of the 150 scripts that came in after that call, and was read by a small group at that time. But to actually see it and to see it on its feet is fantastic. Because I read many, many, many scripts,
But when you actually see a staged reading, or you have the opportunity to see it being spoken, that's such an and. Because you see it living and breathing, and you see it with an audience, which is a whole other thing too.
Yeah. I will say that that's one of the things that I'm happiest about, because it's not often that, at least in my experience, it's not often that we get the chance to be in a decently sized space and to showcase some work in front of an audience with actors. Is like not super frequent. It's actually funny that you say that, because I think I completely forgot that I submitted it to Touchstone at some point, but yeah.
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah. So one of the things that I kind of wanted to talk through a little bit, this whole series is sort of, one, giving people the chance to sort of be like a fly on the wall in some of these rehearsal spaces. So last week for the workshop, air quotes, we had done basically a staged reading with like a little bit of table work, and then this time was to give an example of what it might be like to rehearse the piece. So that's one part of it. Another part is to provide some information and sort of insight in the really enormous question of what goes into a play being put on. And I think one of the things that I'm a bit curious about in particular, but not, like we don't have to strictly talk about this, but is about the artistic director's standpoint, because there's a lot of responsibility in choosing and programming a season that I can imagine not a lot of people will fully understand and appreciate. Even myself, like I've got a vague awareness that like that's one of those responsibilities. And I'd be curious to hear a little bit about your experience, because you had mentioned like there was that call out as one instance. I can only imagine how many scripts are coming in across the year, or what have you, about like that side of the equation of the whole big enormous picture.
Yeah, great. So I think, first of all, it is, as the artistic director of a theatre company that focuses on stories, Canadian and Indigenous stories and plays that are staged here on Turtle Island, it's a massive privilege and responsibility to think about what stories we are choosing. So anytime a play comes to me through an email, as the AD at touchstonetheatre.com, if anyone wants to submit a play, I take it with gratitude. I'm so thankful that someone's reached out and submitted a play, and I take time to read that play. And I have a backlog of plays because it takes me about 3 hours to read a play, maybe 4 hours. So, but it's number one first thing. I think it's really important to know that there is somebody at the end of that submission who is communicating that they are receiving that play, your play, and that they have some sort of a response. Thank you for submitting. I've received your play. I will have time to read it. I won't have time to read it. I hope to read it. Could you send a synopsis? That's a big one. I often say, can you send a synopsis? And then reading the synopsis will give me an indication of what this piece is saying right now. And then I might dive into the 72 pages that is the script, but knowing that will take me about 4 hours, and there's several coming in. So I think that's the first thing. It's really important to submit, to write a letter, to send a play, to not hesitate, to just do it, to just find out who are the artistic directors at theater companies that are inviting plays and send it. There are three things that I personally look for, and this is me. This is me as an artistic director, and everybody's different, and every company is different. But for me, the first thing I look for is the play speaking? Is it speaking loudly, that it wants to be spoken on stage now? And sometimes I go, is the play screaming? It doesn't need to be screaming loudly, it could be screaming softly, but that's the very first thing, bam. Is it speaking? And it wants to keep speaking. It is, you can't, in a way, the voice is, you can't quiet the voice. The voice is coming through the script from the playwright. It doesn't have to be a perfect play, but there has to be a voice that is screaming to be heard. And that comes from the deepest depths of your soul. You know, you started with soul, mind, and where's your soul, where's your mind, where's your body? That as a writer, that's coming from here. Your soul and your head and your gut and your impulse, and you might not even know that you have it. But when I pick up the script, and this is me in this situation, I feel it. I feel that it's speaking. It's a kind of an energy. So if you are writing something as an exercise or just sort of an interesting idea or something you kind of feel something about, but you're kind of ambivalent about it, that's probably not the script that's screaming to be told at this moment in time. And that's probably not the script that's going to get produced. Because we want to tell stories that want to speak right now. And there's a lot of those stories. The second thing I always ask, so there's three things. Is this script actually a theater piece? Or is it possibly a film, a poem, a novel, a short story, or a song, or an album? And that's a really, really important question. I had a recent submission from a playwright from Newfoundland. She actually is a Governor General Award-winning playwright, Canadian playwright. She's a very successful writer, and she sent me her newest play. And I read it, and I thought, this isn't a theater piece, it's actually a novel. Because what she was writing wanted deeper chapters and wanted to go further. And it wasn't, as a play, it couldn't hold the universe that she had, in my opinion. And so that was the answer to that. Brilliant writer, gorgeous writing, but was it a play? This piece, tonight, what I experienced is that this is a piece of theater. That we were in the room with it. I felt that I was in the room with it. And that there needed to be audience in the room with this piece and these characters trapped in wherever the liminal space that they are trapped in. It felt like theater. It could be also a film possibly, but it felt very visceral for me as an audience member to be in the space with these two trapped in the space. So that would be my thought with this piece. The third thing I consider is this script ready to be produced, or does it want to go through, in my opinion, a few more stages of development? And that's usually pretty clear. If I or my team, it's not always me, sometimes it's a curation team, and it's usually a diverse curation team at Touchstone. So your play is not just going to hit me. Does it want to, does the writer, what I suggest to the writer, is there a dramaturge that you would like to work with? Or somebody else that can work with you to take this to the next stage? Because it's not, in my opinion, ready to go into rehearsal and into production. So what are the steps that we could talk about for you to continue the process of developing the play and don't rush the development of a play? I mean, when did you write this play?
This play I started writing in 2017, 2018.
Exactly. So here we are in 2026.
Yeah.
So don't rush, because that is the last thing that I would say, is that a lot of plays sometimes get produced before they're ready. And they get produced before they're ready because a theater company gets very excited about them, and sometimes they're part of the vision of the theater company within that year. And so a playwright gets produced, it's very exciting, you're gonna get money, you're gonna get up, but the play wasn't ready yet, and so it will never be remounted. And it may suffer from bad reviews, and it may get criticized in a way that it can never get back on its feet. So that's where it's really important to have an artistic director or somebody on a team, or a dramaturge, or at a Playwrights Theatre Center, which we have in Vancouver. Somebody at Playwrights Theatre Center who helps with process say, I think this needs a few more workshops and a bit more time with the dramaturge, and relish that. That is a gift, right? It's been 10 years that you're working on this, but that is a gift when someone says, no, go a little further. Don't rush to producing, because you can enjoy developing this further. And this voice, it wants a bit more time.
Yeah. And it's something that I've kind of mentioned in the previous 2 episodes, I believe, at least once, was that one of the things that I've really taken to heart during my first year out of theater school, I was working in mentorship and developmental residency with Wyandotte Theatre in the Yukon. I was working remotely here because of the pandemic. And the person who was leading that residency I was part of a group of 3 people. We were each working on our own project. And I think at that point I was really excited about no, I want to get this thing moving. I want to see it up on stage. This play, Pelmet and Sables. It was a different version of it at that time, but I was like, no, I want to keep working on it. And this person had said to me, that energy is really cool, but also it's really worth mentioning that there's something to be said about being comfortable being in process and not being so quick to try and jump the gun and get ahead of it, get ahead of itself. And so I feel like that's really helped shift on this wavelength that I'm really resonating with of because I've got 5 or 6 different projects that are all being pivoted around the back burner, so to speak. And what's really helpful about that, in addition to the actual project itself benefiting from that depth of care, is also that I can then have an arsenal of things that I can offer to different companies who are hey, we've got an opening for this. And it's well, perfect. Here's one of my projects that's been in the works. Oh, that one's not right? That's fine. Now I've got all these other ones that we can talk about too. So it's okay, here's the one I did a residency with Raven Spirit Dance 2 years ago.
I saw that. I saw your performance.
Right. Yeah. And so that was also a project that's sort of been the concept for that project. That one was much earlier in development than this one, but the concept has been something that I've been sitting with. So it's okay, there's an opportunity for me to get work and work on something with other people and get feedback on my work and work with a group of professionals who can provide that guidance. It's okay, great, I've got another idea that I can put forward. And while none of them, it's the funniest thing. I've had family members, because I've gone off to theater school to be a professional, it's from some people's perspective, it's that hasn't really worked out so well because I haven't had the most amount of things actually fully produced. So people don't see all of the work that I've been doing, but I've been working for however many years. So it's okay, it's an interesting, yeah.
Something I'm going to add to that is I was talking with Yvette Nolan this morning, which you all probably know. Yvette ran Native Earth in Toronto for years and is one of our great writers and producers and directors, has had her work produced at Stratford, so in the big theaters across this country. And I said, so Yvette, as a writer, as a playwright, what do you think you most need? What would you need from a process? And she said, deadlines. I need deadlines. She said there was an offer from a theater company, the Globe Theatre in Regina, that was just anybody who wants to join this playwrights lab, apply for this playwrights lab. She is one of our great writers, Yvette. She's, I think, Anishinaabe Irish.
I believe so, yeah.
And she applied for it because she said, Lois, I just need the deadlines. I just need the deadlines, and that's why I applied for that. So one thing I would say that I have observed in my role as artistic director is that writers do need, I would say, find a group or friends, or go to Playwrights Theatre Center, find a lab that keeps you writing. Because that development stage that we're talking about, life can just push that play you're working on to the back burner. It happens. It happens to our great playwrights. That's why Yvette was like, yeah, I signed up for this lab, just so that I could hit the deadline. So that is the most important advice I would give, is keep writing, but find the people, the running buddy, that will hold you to a deadline, that you decide what you want to hit at that deadline. That's your decision. I want to do this by 5 months from now, and this is the deadline, and make sure that running buddy shows up, because it is process. And as you're reflecting here in the time that this has gone through process, but process only works if you continue nurturing that process. How many of us have ideas that are sitting in the back of our heads? You said you have stuff that you can pull out. That means somehow you're nurturing your writing somehow, and that's admirable. But sometimes we need. I think we all sometimes need someone to hold us accountable to our vision and our dreams, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that, like, I think maybe in part one, I think somebody happened to bring up, like, AI, because it's on everybody's mind these days. And I've been reflecting for at least a good year now on a quote from the great filmmaker Guillermo del Toro, talking about AI, and he pointed out that AI has shown itself to, now specifically for film, but I think it's more broadly applicable, but he was saying that AI has shown itself great at creating really interesting screensavers. And then he said that the value of art is not in how quickly it can be made, or for how cheaply it can be made, or how efficiently we can make it, but it's in how much would you risk to be in its presence. And I think that one of the things that I've been so affirmative for myself, I don't really use AI in any of my work at all, and a big part of that is not just like I guess it could be more efficient, like not even just in my writing, mind you, but in all of the other things. I'm not diagnosed, but I'm like most people in my life are 99% certain that I've got ADHD. I still need to get checked because it could not be, but I could be way more efficient than I am. I talk about like I've got all these projects and I'm speaking as though I know something, but I'm not saying that I'm necessarily good at doing all of this, not necessarily. But for me, this point about process, there's another angle to it that I'll also mention, is that for me that's also kind of the reason why I'm doing this to the degree that I'm trying to do it as a professional, is because I don't think there's anything that I love more than being in process with other artists and creating, but not because I want to get somewhere and have a product by the end of it. Certainly that's important. It's important to be able to sell tickets eventually, but like for me it's so antithetical to consider efficiency and optimizing to the utmost the process of creating something and being 6, 8, 9, 10 years in process on a single play before it's actually ever been premiered, because I feel like that's the thing about being an artist, is the artistic process itself. There's a quote from a hip-hop artist, Benny the Butcher. He was talking in one of his songs, I think, about something else, but again, broadly applicable. And it's a very short line, but I love it as a bit of poetry. He had asked, what's more important, the flower or the soil that grows it? And I think that that's an interesting question when it comes to art, because the thing about AI and art as business, and a part of why I'm not so interested in film in the mainstream, is because it's so product-oriented that the flower comes before everything. And who cares if it's a synthetic flower? We're all going to buy it because we want the flower anyways. But as an artist, a part of why I'm so intent on, I'm not worried about that I've got 6 projects that haven't seen the full light of day, is because it's like, well, that's what I'm in it for, is to be engaged in that process of development more than however it ends up. Because even if I spend the 10 years, some reviewer might come across it and be like, well, that kind of sucked and it didn't really work out that well. And it's like, well, okay, great, you can't please everybody anyways. So anyways, I could go on this particular subject for ages. I think let's open it up for a Q&A at this time. We are running a little bit over time, but I don't want to leave no time whatsoever in case there are any questions. We won't be able to get to as many questions tonight, and then we'll close it out after that. And I'll let this microphone be passed around. There's a question right here.
Cheers, thank you very much. What I'm wondering is, how much would this have cost to put on? You know, so if I'm sorry to get out of the nitty gritty, but if Touchstone was to stage this sort of show, say for what would your charges be, and how much would what would this have cost to have staged all this? There's 2 hours to do.
Well, okay, so there's a few things. One is design. So the question would be, is there a design? Is there a set design? That there's a big cost on that. What's the budget for the materials for the set? What's the budget for the shop? For the carpenters? Set is a big line item in budget. But tonight, what I saw was two banks of chairs, and this was a site-specific
piece. It was actually set in this room. There was no set, and I didn't need one, quite frankly, because I was hearing the text. So that's a big one. That's a big question, is what is the set? Actors, if you want to do a 3-week rehearsal, on a new play it's great to do a 4-week rehearsal. And if you want to pay your actors, you want to pay your actors $1,000 a week, but you're probably going to pay them around $800 a week, $750 to $800 a week. So depending on how big your cast is, if you've got 2 actors, you can probably pay them $1,000 a week. But if you've got 9 actors or 12 actors, if you're writing a play with a lot of characters, then that's a huge budget line. You can just add all that up. Then there's the lighting designer, the costume designer. There may be a choreographer. There may be a cultural consultant to help the actors and the director understand cultural references or language. So all of those positions are paid. There's a stage manager who's paid, and there's usually an assistant stage manager who will handle the setting of the props and the setting of the costumes backstage. So if you imagine that all of those, there's a certain amount that's attached to. If you just think about paying everyone $1,000 a week, or if you think about paying everyone $800 a week, then you can add that up. The designers you pay for a couple months, and then you're paying your director, and then you're paying for your space. So tonight, this was generously offered by the Vancouver Public Library, but this space for 3 hours, if it wasn't by donation, it could be $100 an hour, and you're doing that for that entire rehearsal period, and then you may have to pay for the performance space as well, the rental of the theater, unless you have a performance space attached to you, which we do not. A lot of indie companies in Vancouver don't have a bricks and mortar theater, so we rent theater spaces at the college or at different places. So all of that adds up quite quickly. Then you want to pay the playwright as well, or some royalties to the playwright. Am I missing anybody in that scenario? Composer, musicians, a sound designer for any, what? Yeah. Yes, intimacy and fight coordinator, and if there's any projection in the design, a projection designer. So it starts to add up, which is why, but I don't believe in this, but it's why a lot of writers these days are writing two-handers or solo shows. Yeah. Because then a theater company can afford to produce their show. But I don't fundamentally believe in that. I think fundamentally, if you are writing a show and you are seeing 9 characters, it could be because it's family drama or it's ancestral, or there's like grandmas and aunties and cousins, and you literally, that is writing itself. Then I say, write the play that you see. Then it's harder to take it to a theater company, but it will have vision and energy behind it, because that is the way it's supposed to come out. I don't know how you feel about that.
Yeah, well, I feel like one of the other things on that note too is that there are many different adaptations that are occurring as a result of the increased financial strain, especially these days. So there are a number of options that people have taken to reduce some of those costs. This is where we get into the business side of it, which I mentioned, but having a site-specific work, so you don't need to rent out a theater. I've seen a show that was we want to do it in a cafe. Well, we might be able to just actually ask a cafe, hey, do you mind if we have a theater here? You might be able to get a reduced rent rate because that increases business because you've got all this traffic going in is one option. Co-pros, where companies team up together to produce something because it will cost that much amount of money, so they work together to co-produce a work where you can have a larger financial pool is another option. Another kind of thing might be to consider is this something that might be better suited to an initial community theater support where a lot of the artistic personnel are volunteers. Because one of my projects that I did recently was at the community theater level where I was like, hey, I've got this script for your winter gala, let's try it out. I got the chance to work with 15, 20 people on stage, and none of them were paid, I wasn't paid,
So, you know, it's a big asterisk of all of the other things that go into how that's even possible in the first place. But it's like, okay, I've got this idea that I just want out there. There's another way to go about trying it out first, and then it sort of builds up the track record that I can now take that part of the project's history and say to a company, the cast loved it, the community loved it, they thought it was really interesting. So there's layers to why it would be worth considering the increased cost, so that you can make your case in that sense as well. Yeah, that's the end of my thoughts.
We did a show outside.
Yeah.
In the park.
Did a show outside.
And you performed your writing, your monologue in the park.
Yeah.
In what is Queen Elizabeth Park, that's right.
Yeah.
There were 2 monologues that we performed under the trees. So actually, site-specific is, or unconventional venues are really, really successful, actually.
Mm-hmm.
And kind of thrilling.
Yeah.
Can I add something else to that? There's
Yeah.
also French.
French.
Which, unlike, I have a hard time trying to explain French, so if either one of you would like to explain
Well, I think,
what the Fringe Festival is.
how would you?
Just, like, it's like a lottery, right? Like, you, kind of like submit your, like, that's what my understanding of it, right, was, is that, like, it's kind of like a lottery to essentially have a venue, for a week or so. For those of you that don't know, Fringe is a theater festival, and it runs for a week, maybe 2, question mark. And
It's like 10 days. Yeah.
10 days, yeah, and it's kind of like a profit share for your specific production. Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, I'm really glad you mentioned the Fringe. I believe that we're in a time in theater where audiences or people want, the people want to go into smaller spaces and hear stories, I see you nodding your head, and hear stories in more intimate spaces that are not, that feel that you know, like this, and that you're with the people that are there. There's maybe some food or there might be a bar, might be a DJ afterwards, it might be an unconventional space, but I actually think that people are looking for that. And people are going to stand up again, people are going to music again, and I think so. At Touchstone, we're trying to put things in small spaces and trying to get away from the large theaters and the large proscenium kind of venues, because those are, I'm not sure that people can afford to go to those larger venues, but also I'm not sure that, I think we're all after COVID, maybe I'm this is my reading, are seeking like just small gatherings where we get to hear something. And it's produced to the extent that it's produced, and maybe it doesn't have a full set design, but it's got enough of a set design that we know that there's a designer who also is telling the story through some of the choices they're making. So our last year we produced Anosha Rani's Behind the Moon. Anosha's a Canadian novelist, and we did it in the smallest space we could find, the studio theater at the college. And we did it. Anosha's like, he's won awards, all global awards. He's a very famous novelist. And we could have put him in a huge theater. But we wanted to invite people into a small space to hear Anosha's writing. And it sold out before we opened, because clearly there was a response. And I see you nodding again, right? You're feeling it. That we do, I think there's something happening to us in this human moment where we do want to somehow feel that we're in a room together, as opposed to in a big, vast, dark space together where we could be there or not. It doesn't matter if we're there, because there's 700 seats and we're kind of invisible, and it doesn't matter if we leave halfway through and drive away. Tonight we're all, like, I love that we're all facing each other, and we all kind of saw each other, and we're all going to walk away and kind of remember this little event that we all came to. And I think there's something happening culturally. So as writers, I would just say, remember who your audience is, and what audiences are maybe craving right now, or what they're seeking, how they want to receive stories right now, where they want to receive stories. stories. And that leads us all the way back to, yes, we were outside, but I even believe in living rooms right now. Like gather your friends in the living room.
One of the best spaces that I've ever worked in to date is Notional Space. Yes. Notional Space is a space in East Vancouver owned by a couple, and it's actually literally their living room. They've got this beautifully reconstructed small warehouse that they bought and reconfigured into their actual home. So they've got this beautifully large living room space with like this vaulted multi-story ceiling, because that's just the way that the layout ended up working out. And they offer it as an artistic space, and I got the chance to talk to them. And one of the things that they said was that usually municipal governments have, in their view, a responsibility to provide spaces for artistic events to happen. And in the meantime, while some local governments might not be following through on that for the degree that it's desired, they will happily offer their space as a gathering. But it was just their living room. That they had a sound system that they had access, that they could use in like the simplest of lighting, but I just stood up in front of a group of people on chairs like this in somebody's living room. They had tea, they had a little bit of snacks, and they were like, come on in, let's do something with each other. And it was like the essence of let's just meet and gather. I've worked with some friends who did something in their basement where they were like, we just want to do something and we're tired of waiting for venues to open up or for us to have enough money to cover some of the venues in town. So they were like, they asked Rumble Theatre at the time if they could borrow some of the chair, because Rumble at Progress Lab in East Vancouver has access to like a suite of foldable chairs that they can use at their events, and they were just like, hey, can we borrow those? And it's like, yeah, you can do it. We'll just donate your use for them for the night. And so then we had like 30 chairs and an audience in somebody's basement where I was able to do like some opening remarks and share some of my work. And it was like, back to this, and again, it was like they had even simpler lighting instruments, because this wasn't Notional Space where they are very fortunate to have access to really nice things. This was like, they were throwing everything together. Who knows somebody who's got like anything that could be remotely close to lighting? I know somebody who's got fairy lights. Well, let's set those up. Let's bring them in. Does somebody have a sound system? Well, somebody's got a speaker. We can hook up a mic to that. So let's do that. It's like,
Yeah, because what is theater and what is a play?
Yeah.
It's a gathering of people to hear a story, and that can occur anywhere. And if there's any barrier that I always think, if there's any barrier that is creating an accessible, like creating difficulty to access that vision, then get rid of that barrier. And often the barriers are an idea of what professional is. And it has to look a certain way, and it has to be in a big theater. And sometimes that is where you feel, that is valid to feel that way, but it's also really distilling it down to what it essentially always has been, which is humans gathering around a story, with a little bit of lighting, and a writer, and some actors, and some music, and hearing that story, and celebrating those artists. And I do think that is the essence of what a theater is and what a play is.
There's a question up over that way.
Hi. I'm curious to know from both a playwright's perspective and a director's perspective, when, like for an original script, when it's over, would you, like in the rehearsal process, be encouraging the actors to improvise, take things out, put things in, change words, or is that all done in the workshop period, and then once you're at the table read, it's like set in stone? Or do you evolve it until like the preview?
Yes.
Yeah, in essence, it can vary a little bit depending on how like stubborn and clear the writer or the director is that they want to honor this, that, or the other thing, but there's often a lot of flexibility. I've worked on many plays, new plays, where the playwright is there up until opening night saying, actually, let's tweak this line, let's adjust this line. We discover a moment in the rehearsal or in the workshop that's like, oh, this is actually a great idea, let's just use that.
Yeah, I've been as an actor, I've been handed a monologue between preview and the next preview, a monologue, an entire page or two of text. Can you throw this into the next preview? And I've had to learn it that day. So definitely, writing can happen all the way up to opening night, and then it's locked and loaded.
Yeah. I'll say maybe we'll take one more question, because we are a little bit over time. As much as I know I would love to keep talking about this. Is there another question? One question over here.
Hi, if I heard you correctly, you were looking for a script that was saying something that needs to be said now. And I'm wondering how that relates to the staying in process and the rewriting up until opening. Like, if it's possible for the thing which the script is saying to become stale or irrelevant over that period.
I think that I'll say very briefly that was something I was going to touch on, is that it can be sometimes a challenge for multi-year processes to stay relevant. I think that that's definitely an ongoing thing that I've experienced, where it becomes a question of the process itself. Are we needing to continue to update this? How universal is the core essence of the work, and how...
But also you want it to remain relevant, 20 years from now.
In theory, but I would also say that sometimes there are some works that are so relevant that they run the risk of being only relevant in their time, and then they become like a time capsule to look back on, oh, this is the way that people were thinking in 2026. I don't know that I would say there's a clear answer to it. I think that that becomes one of those massive eternal questions for any artist, regardless of writer or otherwise, that like, is this relevant? And I feel like, for me, a part of where I navigate that as one possible answer is I really try and look for the deeper layers of something that's going on. So for this play in particular, I leaned on the framework of an art movement from the 40s called Dadaism, where a part of what they were looking to do in their absurdist theater work and artwork was to give an example of the absurdity of life itself that they were experiencing. How absurd that world leaders could, without blinking an eye, send all of their young people off to fight in a war that people were more and more commonly seeing as unnecessary. But rather than talk strictly about the war itself, though many artists probably did, the Dadaists were like, well, we want to capture the fact that this is all absurd, and we want to speak to the absurdity itself. So a part of this play is about the absurdity of death and how it's always present whether we will it or not. And also that things are so bizarre. Like, I can't begin to explain how bizarre things are if I take a step back in our current climate, our current social ecology. So it's like, are there ways, for me anyways, where I start to explore what is the staying power of what I'm looking to talk about? I could talk about the presidency of this country, or I could talk about the leadership of this country or that country, or the way that we're all navigating this social issue, and that certainly does feature in some of my work. But I think the important underlying continuity thread, for me anyways, whatever it's worth, is what are there deeper layers that I'm looking to express? And then the actual play itself is just a metaphor. Metaphor having the root of, in its language, of getting something across. To get something across, if I believe correctly, is the etymology of metaphor. I'm just looking to get across something deeper that takes on the container and the layer and the framework of something that might be more specific of its time. But as a play, I feel like that's what goes underneath it. At the very least, as an example of this conversation for Pelman and Sables, it's both about the fun of it, but also the absurdity of all this other stuff. I'm starting to repeat myself, but I feel like it can take many, and even as I say that, I'll also say there's probably going to be an artist out there who disagrees flatly with me and is like, no, this is the way it should be. And they go about it that way as well, because I feel like there might be ways that we have in common with each other as artists, but I think other artists might find a completely different route than I do and be like, actually, see, that's not really the right way to go about it at all. So it's like, I could be coming up with my own version of it, and it might not be... Anyways, I'll keep it there for my thoughts on that. If there are any other thoughts on that.
I would just add that I think in process, okay, this is just my opinion. In process doesn't mean holding on to something. It actually means allowing it to flow in process. So we are always living in the world that we are in every day, every year, every month, every year. So the art that we're creating goes into process with us as we go through that time that you've gone through. You went through, your whole being went through that process. So the piece will take on you. thoughts as you are moving through time. And it's a question of what does in process mean, actually, I think. And I think it's about allowing, or any art form, to be in draft form. And it's living as you continue to nurture it. And it will tell you if it is getting dated, because it's no longer living with you as you go through time. I know that's a little bit philosophical, but I think that that's actually the truth of being an artist, is you're always meeting your art in the moment that you're meeting it as time passes, and then it will shift with you. And I see that happen with you as a writer, is that this is my experience of you, is that your work is living. It's a living draft. It's in draft form moving forward with you. And that's part of the process that I observe. Does that kind of make sense?
I think so. Yeah. I think I would, at the very least from my perspective, I intend to try and aim in that direction. That I really try and put my effort towards maintaining that thought that was offered to me those years ago when I got out of theater school, being a process of trying to figure out what exactly that may mean, moment by moment and day by day. Because I also, sort of in line with that, not that I know that I'm good at this either, but like I try and not to make, it's really tricky. As an artist, I've got a lot of things that I can say and want to say, and as just a person who's living. And I can and do say a lot of things that sound declarative, but I also try and make sure that in my art I'm not so, this is what I'm saying and this is what it means. It's more like I'm sitting with something. And by sitting with it, it stays breathing and living and fluid. Because if I get too locked into, well, this is how I feel and this is what I'm going to say and this is what I'm going to do, that's really profound energy and really useful energy. But I might drift away from that moment in time that inspired it in the first place, and then I'm sort of losing the plot, and the project might be like, well, I don't know if it's actually relevant anymore, because I was so locked into, like you mentioned, this idea of holding onto the expression, as opposed to, well, actually I'm just going to be with what's underneath this project. And what arises from it may be something, who knows where it goes. Yeah. I think we'll keep it here. I'll invite all of us to do one thing. So, at the beginning of this rehearsal process, I asked these actors to check in. I mentioned in part 2, I'll mention again, that as a director, when I work on projects, I like to have an opening and a closing practice. So I'll invite all of us to close together. This is one that was introduced to me by the choreographer and artist Sherine Friedenberg. So I'm going to invite all of you to do a version of it. It's a little bit different than what I would do with actors in space, but so all together, we're all going to take a breath in. Take a breath out. Take a breath in. Take a breath out. Now, in just a moment, we're all going to raise our hands in front of us. I'll demonstrate and put down the microphone right now. Kind of like this. A little bit space permitting, because I see that some of you are seated right next to each other. So here's how this is going to work. I'm going to count down from 3. I'll say 3, 2, 1. And then after the 1, we're all going to clap once together. So not right now, it'll be like 3, 2, 1, clap. The clap, all of us together, all at once. The clap is going to signify that that's the end of our process together. And then I'll say thank you for coming. You can applaud afterwards as well, and all of that stuff. But the clap is going to signify the rehearsal has come to an end and we're done with our work, and we're leaving our work here in the space, all right? So, I'll put down the microphone and join you folks as well. So, hands up in the air. 3, 2, 1. Thank you very much.